Hey, y'all. This is Rachel with the Friendly City Books podcast. Today, we are talking with author Clay McLeod Chapman. He is the author of over like 60 novels, comics, plays, children's books. You have a very prolific backlist, including Ghost Eaters, one of my now favorite horror novels, Whisper Down the Lane, The Remaking, and the book we're going to talk about today, your most recent novel, What Kind of Mother, which is out, but it's going to come out in paperback on June 4th.
Yeah.
So
happy 4th of June.
Yes, happy 4th of June. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Anytime. This is amazing. Thanks for having me. Tell me, where is Friendly City? Where's Friendly City Books? Which Friendly City are you in?
Columbus, Mississippi.
Oh my gosh.
That's so amazing. We're a little bitty town in northeast Mississippi. We are in like the Starkville, Tupelo area. So we're about 20 minutes away from Mississippi State University. We have Mississippi University for Women in Columbus. So we're just sort of tucked away up here and trying to give the people books.
Give them what they want. How long has Friendly City Books been around?
Right at 3 years. It was 3 years in November.
Happy birthday. That's amazing.
Thank you.
And so far, so good?
It's been a lot of fun. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. We've had a really good community response. I have been pleasantly surprised to meet more horror readers in Columbus. So it's been fun.
See, you just got to give them a home. You got to give them a little hub, and the horror readers find you. They
exactly.
If you build it, they will come.
Yep, and that is what has happened.
Amazing.
And we were able to start the podcast and find even more people. So
even better.
Good things.
Win-win.
Yes, definitely. Well, if you let me give a summary, just a real quick summary, I guess, of What Kind of Mother. So this is a horror novel. It is the story of single mom Maddie, who is in her 30s, so right here with me, returns to her hometown of Brandywine, Virginia with her 17-year-old daughter, and she makes her income as a palm reader at the farmer's market and out of the motel where she lives, and she reconnects with her old high school boyfriend, Henry, who we find out in like the first few pages that his wife and son his wife has died, his son is missing, and she reads his palm, has a very strange vision, and things just get wilder from there. Can you give us sort of a quick pitch, your version of the book? Well, what do you tell people when they're like, what is this?
Oh, man. I mean, it's embarrassing. It's terrible of me, but your pitch is far better than anything I could do because, I mean, even at this point, I mean, the book has been out since September and here it is March. And I still don't really know how to talk about it efficiently. I'm usually pretty cheeky and I kind of say it's like a Nicholas Sparks novel that just goes right off the rails. That,
yes.
Starts off meet cute, like two people who have like kind of lived their lives, like gone through some heartbreaks and some, heartaches, and then they reconnect with one another. And, there's a missing persons case and, Maddie, who's struggling to make ends meet. Her heart kind of goes out to Henry, and she thinks that she can help him, and things just get weirder and weirder and weirder. And the book starts to kind of gradually, incrementally take a turn into something a lot different than what it stared off as. So
yes,
that's my
I love that
pitch.
shift. Yeah, and I think that shift is so great. When I first saw the comparison to Nicholas Sparks, but Gone Wrong, I was like, absolutely.
People are mad at it, though. It's kind of amazing. It's so hard, I think, in this day and age to be kind of like surprised by, you kind of want to know what you're getting yourself into with books, movies, TV. If a book or a piece of art or whatever media you want to kind of imbibe, if it turns into something else or becomes something else in you're kind of like, whoa, wait a minute, that's not what I signed up for.
Yeah.
And there's like a a pushback or a reticence to that, and I'm learning that firsthand right now, which is very interesting. It's a very interesting
Yeah.
kind of encounter with readers who are like, I came for the Nicholas Sparks, I didn't come for the cosmic body horror.
I guess that is an interesting, because to me it would seem, and maybe just because I have read more of your work, and that may be more the case for people who aren't as familiar with you. You see
Mm-hmm.
the Nicholas Sparks, you think one thing, but like obviously I knew this was going to get weird, so I was here for it. But no, it's interesting that you say that, because I've experienced that with books. Like, this was not what it was marketed as, even
Yeah.
though I love weird, creepy stuff. If you are just completely unprepared, I can see how that would get some extreme reactions.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's kind of, you want to draw a line in the sand, and
Hmm.
you want to ask, like, cross this line with me. And,
Hmm.
some people will be like, nope, not going to do it. And other people will be like, yeah, this is totally, I
Yeah.
will go on this adventure. And I think the book is for people who are willing to cross that line.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's funny how, you know, books don't have to be for everyone, but they just have to
Hmm.
find their readership, right?
Hmm.
And What Kind of Mother, I think, is one of those books that kind of defiantly, says, I dare you to be my book. I dare you
Yeah.
to be my readership. And so yeah, I don't know, like, it's just been very interesting to kind of see people, how they react to it, what they say
Yeah.
about it.
I loved it. And I mean, obviously I don't want to give spoilers or anything, but um as a just a general um like one word sort of, what can you expect? I think of the South Park episode with the crab people,
Yeah.
and we'll just leave it at that.
Yes.
Like
Crustaceanous, maybe crustacean-y,
Yeah.
crustaceanally, crusty. It's a crusty book.
Yes, it is a crusty book. Well, have you heard of the idea of, and the word has left me, but the idea that we all carcinogenation, that
Oh,
everybody that humanity will eventually evolve into crabs.
oh my God. I
I
I
was thinking about
have.
that the whole time I
I
read it.
totally have. I it's just it's so funny. Like, I mean, I grew up in Virginia. I grew
Mhm,
up in and around the Chesapeake Bay.
mhm,
I grew up around crabbing, and it was, my grandfather was a crabber. Um, it just it was like, it wasn't necessarily second nature, but it was like the thing that we did as a family. Like, we crabbed. Like, my family's still crabs, and it seemed like a very, I didn't plan on it being so carcinogenic, whatever the word may be. But it just kind of organically started to kind of like slip into the book, like it eased itself in.
yeah,
And much like the evolution of a crab, like the book itself kind of shed its skin and
mhm,
became this other thing. And like, it happened quite organically, and not by plan,
okay.
which is either a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know. The jury is out.
I think it's pretty cool when things go off the rails in the best way and you didn't realize it was gonna happen. And
Hmm.
I really thought, um, you write the way you wrote about the setting and the river and everything, I was like, he has had personal experience with this. Like, this writing feels like it is someone who is intimately familiar with this lifestyle, and it just
Yeah.
drew me in as a reader. I felt the humidity and the world building was very, very effective. And then when you get
Yeah.
into the horror, instead of it, you go from it being, oh, this lovely sort of, even though very hot setting, and then it's cloying and you're like, I can't get out, which is, what you want, I would
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. I mean, I do think of it as like a trap, like that
Mhm.
you kind of walk into this book feeling one way, but then the book kind of like closes in around you, and then all of a
Mhm.
sudden you're like, I can't get out, can't get out. And like that kind of Garrett effect, that kind of snare once you're in, you're in. And, if the book is effective and it kind of pulls you in, you won't care that you're trapped.
Mhm.
And when the really weird stuff starts to happen, you'll be kind of like, there's no other choice. This is clearly where the book had to go. Like
Yep.
it had to be this way.
Yes. Like a crab trap. You
Mm-hmm,
realize
mm-hmm,
you're there once it's too late.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I see where
I
you're going
love
with this.
I love it when that happens though. To me that's the best kind of surprise when reading a horror novel.
Yeah. I mean,
Um
books do. I mean, like a lot of great books do that. I feel like,
mhm.
um, where you're just like, oh my God, like it's that feeling of like, it was always destined to be this way. It was always
Yes.
going this direction, but maybe me as the reader didn't, like, I wasn't aware of that. I didn't know. But,
Mhm.
I think deft hands, like, I think Riley Sager is great at that, where you like, there's a kind of design, like a schematic to the book, where you just enter into it and you feel like, oh my God, I don't know where I'm going,
Mhm.
but I put my faith in the author, and where you think you're going versus where you end up being like completely different places. And I love that. I love that.
Me too. Well, and you sort of when we were talking earlier about reader expectations, you mentioned that you want to be surprised when you're reading something like this, but also I think maybe more and more it's hard to be surprised, especially if you read just a lot
Mm-hmm.
in one genre. And I mean, there are people who have read hundreds more horror novels than me, but there are still times where I'm like, I read a book and I think, well, that was really fun, but it didn't feel super fresh and new.
Mm-hmm.
But every time I've read one of your books, I'm like, I have not read anything like this. And that is so wonderful.
Yeah.
It's such a
Yeah.
wonderful surprise to be surprised genuinely.
Oh
So
man, I gotta no crash, but like, man, I have to keep it up. Like, how does like, how am I gonna surprise Rachel next? Like, this is like, this is
I
the
believe in
bar
you.
has been raised.
I believe in you. It will be fine.
Thank you, thank you. Keep the faith, please.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Um, So, how did the seeds of this story start? Like, where did the idea come from? I know you said
Hmm.
a lot of it evolved organically, but what was the first little bit?
Um, it's interesting because like I read. There are a few books that I just love. I'm imbibing all the time. Just read, read,
Mhm,
read, 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 and a lot of nonfiction kind of enters into my fold, and like I'll be reading.
mhm,
I'm not like a true crime fan per se, but I do, crime novels, nonfiction novels about kind of particular events. And I kind of got obsessed with this notion that kind of pops up every so often in nonfiction, true crime ish books, and it's always the psychic, the person who comes into the sheriff's office and basically says, "I I have this skill, this supernatural skill, and I know that you're dealing with a missing persons or a murder case, and you're looking for leads. And as this psychic, I can help you. Like I can lead you
mhm,
to the body of the victim, or I can lead you to the missing persons." And whether or not you believe this, whether this person can actually do these things, what I find interesting is that they kind of, more often than not, they tend to kind of ingratiate themselves into a case,
mhm,
and usually the sheriff, like the police departments, kind of deny or rebuke or say this, no, we're not doing this. But every so often you'll kind of read a book about this actually happening, and I don't know, like I just got like really kind of fascinated with that kind of personality, that character. And in What Kind of Mother, I kind of wanted to take the stance of, what if you had a character kind of like that, a palm
mhm,
reader, a psychic, like a storefront psychic who says they can kind of tap into that other realm, but doesn't really have that ability, like that they're
mhm.
not actually psychic. Like I make I feel like I've made the choice that Maddie is not psychic. But what if someone who is not psychic, who purports to be psychic, actually has a psychic epiphany or has some
Mhm.
sort of like supernatural moment, lightning bolt, and that kind of like, how do they rectify with that? How do they deal with that? And I just loved that notion of someone who is a sham, basically, you know, either becoming or having to deal with the reality of that. And um, yeah, that was the one of the kind of seeds. There's another seed that I feel like if I talk too much about it, um, it might give away stuff.
Yeah.
So, but there are other kind of supernatural entities. Like when I pitched it, I was like, I don't know. I if anyone out there has ever heard of what's the name of the book? I think it's called Conjuring Philip.
Okay.
This is a little Easter egg. Like if I read this book, I love this book. It's an amazing book. It's out of print. You have to like dig it up. You have to hunt it down. But Conjuring Philip was a another guiding force, and I wanted to kind of do something about that.
Okay. I'll have to go find that and read it now.
It's a
And
doozy.
sounds great. I mean, that's absolutely. Um,
They turned it into a movie, a good movie ish, called The Quiet Ones,
I
which was
feel
like
like
a
I think I've
Hammer
heard
film
of
that came
that.
out probably like in like 2014, maybe. It's
Yeah.
been a while. Um, but and then there are a whole slew of other movies that yeah, but in books. And yeah, if if you are still talking to me after you read What Kind of Mother, in the
Mhm.
back of the book there's like a pretty thorough reading list of like all the books and movies and things that
Yeah.
like that helped kind of shape and inspire What Kind of Mother.
Okay. I read the arc. I'm gonna have to check and see if that was in there, and if not, I will just have to get a finished copy. Oh no. Um, but no, I really liked Maddie's character. Like I said, she's around my age, and even though I don't have kids, you know, you have that mindset that you immediately sort of feel that familiarity with.
Thank
And
goodness. Whew.
yeah.
She's a tough one. Like people either I don't know. People are kind of like, some people like her, some people don't.
Mhm.
I think it's always the like, I don't know. I'm not gonna, forgive me for jumping on your question, but like
No, you're good.
Maddie's a funny one. She's a tough cookie.
Yeah. I mean, I could see how different people would have different opinions. You know, I like that she's a little rough around the edges. I like the way she handled her situation. Like, to me, that's, I don't know, I relate to that.
Mm,
And I like her emotional awareness and her ability to understand that what she does is, you know, reading people and that kind of thing. So I really appreciated like that aspect of her specifically because like
yeah,
this, she knows what she's doing. This is an intelligent person, someone that you can root for.
yeah.
Yeah.
I it's funny, when I first started writing her, she was a lot worse. Like I went the whole route of like her being this kind of like celebrity psychic, like one of those
Mm.
like Long Island psychics, or like one,
Yeah.
like not that she had a TV show, but she was like she was of an elevated status. But then she gets, God, I had written this whole prologue where like she's like defrauded on a like an Oprah style
Ooh.
like she was like a celebrity, like Maddie was like famous psychic who go like makes like a I see this thing, and then like she gets called out for being wrong,
Mhm.
and like she basically gets canceled, like she did, like they don't nobody wants her anymore.
Mhm.
So she has to then go back home and lick her
Mm.
wounds. Uh, and my editor was like, "Why are you making it so hard for the reader to root for Maddie?" And I was like, "Because like I just want to like like the rise and fall. Like I just love that." And she was just like, like my editor really kind of, we whittled it down in terms of like, let's just have her like having this kind of like, she's down on her luck, she's dealing with custody issues, like make
Mhm.
ground her, like make it real.
Yeah.
So, if you feel any kind of emotional connection to Maddie, then you have to thank my editor, because I was going to totally be like, nope, she's a bad person, totally don't like her, but then she has her little moment. Maybe.
Yeah. Well, I really liked her, and I mean all the characters were fascinating. I did really enjoy the old women at the farmers market. I was like, I know them. I have met all these women. So little touches like that, they just flesh out the world and make it feel like I could go down the road and be in this town.
Yeah.
It's
Do
just very
you,
fun.
is there, where you are, is there a farmer's market with the farmer's market mafia, the old lady
Um,
patrol?
we have a farmers market. I don't think we have a farmers market mafia in that way, but we do have sort of a Main Street downtown coalition that I guess could fill that void if they want to. They're
Amazing.
wonderful, but like if you want the hot goss and all the planning for the events, like I could point to the people that you would go ask.
Yeah. Phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's
And
always the people who've got like the finger on the pulse, right?
mhm. Honestly, that group of women reminds me more of the even smaller town where I grew up. So
There you
it's
go.
an interesting blend.
I mean, they're out there. They're
Yeah.
real.
Oh yeah.
There's my farmers market mafia, and then there's, I feel like, yeah, like that's an iconic character for
Yes.
all farmers markets.
Oh yeah. And even if they're not at a farmer's market, I feel like every town does have that group just
Totally.
about.
Yeah. Yeah.
um
Get the hot goss.
oh yeah. Well, and so it's talking about how characters feel familiar, to switch over for just a second to Ghost Eaters. Um,
Yeah.
again, I related a lot to the main character, same
Yeah.
age. I think I maybe related to her a little bit more. She didn't have kids. She was sort
Yeah.
of getting started in her life out of college. And then that friend group,
Yeah.
like I saw so many people and friends that I had had. So like that one really, really hit me.
Yeah.
But it was incredible. You you write women very well. Is that okay to say?
I mean, please say it louder for the people in the back. That's amazing. Thank you. Like
Yeah.
you know, I, you know, I feel like Aaron from Ghost Eaters and that circle of friends, like that was my circle of friends,
Mhm.
that kind of like weird, you've just graduated college, for so long the world has been your oyster, and now it's kind of like, what do we do? Where do we go
Mhm.
from here? Like and that safety net just gets yanked away. And
Oh, yeah.
I don't know, like yeah, there's a lot of I'm 200 years old now, and but I vividly remember like that post collegiate, post graduation, undergrad kind of like, like it just becomes, you're just in that no man's land of your early to
Mhm.
mid 20s.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, sorry, I could talk about Ghost Eaters and just, like, dive into that all day.
Amazing.
So I guess I'll try to stay on topic even though I love that
I'm here for it. We can talk
book.
about anything you want to talk about. It does not matter to me. Like, I'm just tickled that you want to talk at all.
Oh. Well, let's see. Oh, did writing What Kind of Mother put you off seafood at all, even for a little bit?
um oh my god. Did it? I No.
No?
No, if I'm being honest. No. I mean, because here's the thing. It
Mhm.
is totally gross. There's no doubt about it. It is
Yeah.
absolutely 100% gross. Like, eating crabs is disgusting. You're basically eating sea spiders. And that's
Yeah.
just like, who the heck does that? Like, why would anyone put anything like that in your mouth? But when you live around it, work around it, like when it is kind of in the fabric of your existence, like
Mhm.
like many, like most of the people who live in the Chesapeake Bay, you just don't even think about it. Like it's just second nature. And like, I mean, people just carry the smell of fish with them. Like it's phenomenal how like it is not even, you know, second nature. It is their first nature. It is their
Mhm.
primary kind of existence. And you just get accustomed to it in a way
Mhm.
that, you know, if you don't grow up around it, like, you know, I'm positive it would just be like, this is disgusting. But like the Oyster Festival, that's real. Like that actually is a thing that takes place in Urbana, Virginia, which I've been
Cool.
to many a times, and the Little Miss, and just like it's not so much that the book turned me off of it, but I did share my kind of growing kind of like apprehension towards eating raw oysters. Like raw oysters, like because there's always like because every so often you will open it up and there'll be like a little something extra in there, and you'll just be like,
Ooh,
you know, I
yeah.
don't want to eat that. I don't want to eat that. You know, my wife loves raw oysters, and there's just a moment of like, okay, like you can have
Mhm.
all of them.
I do tend to feel that way about seafood. I don't know, we
Yeah.
our town is not a coastal town, and so, obviously, I think seafood tends to taste better on the coast in general. I'm a lot more prone to be like, "Yes, give me all the seafood," when I'm visiting a coastal town.
Yeah.
Up here, I'm a little more like, "Let me inspect this."
Where
So,
did
I
this
don't know,
come from? What
it's
is the sell by date?
exactly. But, like, that sort of ick factor in the day-to-day for me, like, made reading the book more fun because you get that adrenaline, like, you know?
Phenomenal. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
it is. I mean, it is gross. Nature is kind of scary and gross. I'm
Yeah.
going to say gross and scary at the same time. Screw gross. It is scary and gross, but it's nature. You know,
Mhm.
I feel like the more often you kind of like, I mean, you could just flip open any, you know, I'm going to say nature book. What is like any book about any aspect of nature, you
Mhm.
know, aquatic life, botany, mushrooms, like they're just all. The more you kind of study up on it, the
Mhm.
grosser it gets.
Yeah.
Mm.
But I love it. It's so fun, and there's so much storytelling to be found once you start really digging into an animal or a plant and just like, how do they survive? It's and especially the things that end up feeling so alien, like once you learn about them so much that it stops, sort of like how you say a word over and over and over and it loses
Mhm.
meaning. You I feel like sometimes you can dig so far into a different life form that
Yeah,
it feels completely alien, and that's really fun to me.
yeah. No, it's amazing how. I mean, I was just thinking of like wasps, or crabs, or you name
Mhm.
mushrooms. Like you know, like it
Yeah.
is. You just dig a little deeper and just read about it, and it's just like this is it's messed up. It's like
Mhm.
there's like like the way they eat, the way they grow, the way they reproduce. Like it is a horror movie
Yep.
when you look at it, you know, under the
Mhm.
microscope, and like I don't know.
And to think that, like, I could open the door and walk outside, and that's happening,
Yeah.
even though I can't see it.
Oh
That's
God.
so fun.
Fun is that's one word for it.
I think it's fun, but this is me, again, liking creepy things, and, have to be careful who I say that to. Um, so to maybe get a little serious for a minute.
Okay.
So, grief and loss seem to be very strong themes in your work. We said in What Kind of Mother, you find out pretty immediately that Henry, Maddie's high school boyfriend that she reconnects with, lost his wife and son. Ghost Eaters, the main character's ex boyfriend, you find out very quickly has OD'd. And like the whole book is her working through her
Yeah.
grief in very horrific ways.
Yeah.
Um, is that something you set out to put in your work? Does it again tend to happen organically? Do you tend to be surprised when you're like, man, I just wrote another book that is super sad in that way? Like, how
So
do you
appealing,
feel
right?
about all
Like,
that?
like who wants to read these awful books about heartbreak and grief? I mean, I it's funny because I think that like a lot of the best like supernatural like ghost
Mhm.
stories tend to deal with grief on some level. I think.
Mhm.
Um I mean I feel like I have five answers. Um One of them was this idea starting with this book I wrote called Whisper Down the Lane,
Mhm.
where I started just kind of asking myself, like, what scares me? Um, I'm always writing stuff and like having ideas, and like it's like, oh, there's a vampire, there's like, oh, a werewolf, a zombie. But I started to kind of like kind of turn inward and start asking kind of like what are the things that I feel are scary right now for me.
Mhm.
And I'm a dad. I'm a parent of two sons, and you know nothing terrifies me more than being a father, being a parent who is actively letting go of their children on a daily basis and kind of casting them out into the world. And the world gets scary
Mhm.
sometimes, and like there was a kind of creative shift, mental shift, where I just started kind of putting a little bit more skin in the game, I guess. Where it's like, what are, if this is what frightens me, the loss of a child, or the my kids hate me for it because I say it all the damn time, but like, I'm essentially casting my kids in these kind of private horror movies every day where I'm just like writing, and it's not
Yeah.
them, but it is the kind of like the emotion of them,
Mhm.
the kind of the feeling of them. And it is like, I'm tapping into that fear. And, like grief, I feel like is a very palpable emotion. And I, I tapped it with Ghost Eaters and wrote from a personal place. And then it wasn't so much that it was like, oh, I want to do that again with What Kind of Mother, but it's just tapping into like I am really uh, desiring right now this notion of kind of like achieving a place of emotional honesty
Mhm.
within the writing,
Yeah.
and whether people think I got there or not, like it's up for debate. But like I'm striving towards like striking a sincere emotional chord. And the biggest fears for me are the ones of like loss, losing someone that you love, and you know, grief. I feel like is the kind of haunting that we feel when we lose somebody. Um, Grief is a ghost, so it makes it very kind of organic to kind of write about
Mhm.
those particular things. Um, but I think there's so many great kind of what are kind of getting tagged as grief horror novels.
Mm.
Um, there's this one called This Thing Between Us by
Mhm.
Gus Moreno. It's an amazing book, amazing book. Come With Me by Ronald Malfi. Oh my God.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, I mean, like, there's just so many, and they're all this, whether they are directly about the loss of somebody, you do see these characters kind of processing their grief through, you know, through these ghosts or supernatural, entities. Like, I don't know. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I do think you sort of said something about this at the beginning of your answer, that horror lends itself well to exploring grief and really heavy things like that. And I've thought that for a while. Um, I first got into horror with Stephen King. I mean, a lot of people do, and I very quickly sort of thought, he's not writing horror for the sake of the scare factor. He is writing about the human experience through the lens of horror. And I think, when that can be done well and you do it very well, it does you get that authenticity, and you get a way to, excuse me, sort of explore these very, very hard emotions that people
Yeah.
tend to repress in daily life. At least to me, it's almost, even though you're right there in the story, because you're reading about these fantastical things, it almost gives you a little bit of emotional distance
Hmm.
to watch these characters go through these things and sort of let it percolate in the
Yeah.
back of your mind, how it could apply to you. And I think that's fascinating.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned King, and I think Pet Cemetery is like the OG grief
Yeah.
horror book. I mean, there's plenty before, but
Yeah.
like I think that to me really kind of puts a
Yeah.
stamp on the idea of, like these people are dealing with something,
Mhm.
and they are dealing with
Exactly.
tragedy.
Yeah.
And the horror kind of comes out from that, like that, every decision, every kind of impulse is kind of based upon or born out
Mhm.
of, uh, loss. And
Mhm.
yeah, I love it. I love Pet Cemetery is like my favorite Stephen King novel.
Yeah,
So
mine too so far. I'm taking
yeah.
my time reading through his work, but so far nothing has
Mm.
yet to top that.
And it's funny because the way he talks about it is that he was like, this is way too dark. No, like I think he like put it in his drawer for a while
Hmm.
until his wife Tabitha was like, no, you gotta do this.
Yeah.
And it is amazing how, like, even then, how, like, he knew, he felt himself that he had kind of mined something really kind of like
Mhm.
deep and dark, and like that was almost too much for him. Like, which,
Yeah.
can you imagine, like, too much for Stephen
I
King?
mean,
Yeah,
I cannot. Whatever would make him hesitate would be just unimaginable for
yeah,
me.
yeah. What scares Stephen King?
Who knows? But I mean, yeah, that story works because he taps into that genuine, authentic emotion, and I
Mhm.
I felt that reading Ghost Eaters. I felt it, in What Kind of Mother, and it's so wonderful. I think when that happens, even when you're reading a book about very dark things, like knowing that, seeing that authenticity and feeling that connection is magical.
God
So
damn, that's what I love to hear it. Thank you.
yeah.
I'll hold on to that because, yeah, it's nice. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I mean, it's true, and I imagine it's difficult and it can be exhausting to have to draw on that during the writing process. I mean, does it ever get difficult? Do you have to step away from a work when you're sort of having that personal connection with it?
Um, I don't know if I have to walk away from it, but it is. I mean, I think of it as like kind of butterflies in a jar, or like
Mhm,
lightning bugs in a jar, where it's like the emotion is contained. Like, it's
mhm,
cathartic. Like, you kind of, these feelings, they never go away. Like, you still
mhm.
have them, but like you kind of isolate and contain them in the vessels that are these books. And so when I read them later, I'm kind of like, oh my God, like, like there's a kind of removal of, like, wow, did I feel that? Did I do that? Like, it's the kind of
Mhm,
the hindsight, the kind of like the perspective that you get when you're removed from the writing.
mhm.
Um, when I'm in it, when I'm writing it, it's like, the hardest part is to kind of break out of it. Like, oh God, I have to be a human being again. Like, I have to, like, leave this room. I have to, like, step away from my computer. Like, that stuff is the hardest, because, uh, yeah, I mean, it's makes me a awful person to live with, but like, I just want to live in that emotional state. I want to live in
Mhm.
that story. Um, and people will be like, "Hey, it's dinner time, Dad." And like, "Can you come to bed?" And I'll be like, "Huh, huh, huh." I'm sorry, I was in, Maddie land, or Ghost Eaters land.
Oh, man. I mean, I imagine it's got to be fun though. You get in that groove, no matter what you're writing about. That's a rush in and of
Yeah.
itself. The rush of creation. So,
Yeah. It's funny because like there there are days where it just feels awful, awful, and I'll be like,
Mhm.
why in the heck am I doing this? Like, where's the fun in this? And but then there's like these moments, and they totally outweigh the self doubt and the kind of self recriminations. But like, there's that feeling of like, I don't know, like when you hit something, just hit a moment, and it's like and it is totally like a lower back kind of in the spine moment where it's just like, ooh, like that's it, that's the story, or that's what
Mhm.
I'm like. And they're so fleeting. Like
Mhm.
you, if you're lucky enough, if I'm lucky enough to kind of hit it, tap into that, I'll be like, and then it dissipates because I have to write another paragraph or another page, and I'll be like chasing that dragon, like always chasing that kind of like that feeling
Mhm.
of like, oh, I want to tap it into that, and it's that emotion, it's that thing. I
Mhm.
just want to like, I just want to make something that feels real, and you
Mhm.
like, you kind of know it in the moment, or you like, there's a moment where you feel it, and then you just hope that it kind of sticks, that it stays, that it
Yeah.
survives all the revisions and edits, and that you move on, that it like, that you kind of hold on to that, because
Yeah.
otherwise it goes away.
Yeah. Yeah. You definitely have to trust the process. Um, well, let me ask you this then. At this point, what freaks you out more, crab people or haunted mushrooms?
uh
Or neither?
I mean, I would say neither, but if I had to choose between them, I would say
Mhm.
mushroom people, mushroom ghosts.
Yeah.
And I think I at this point, I mean, because the crabs are home.
Mhm.
That's I grew up with those, so they don't scare me as much. Mushrooms, it's kind of like, what, like, that is tapping into something that is unfamiliar in the sense that it's outside of my kind of realm of
Mhm.
existence. I am not a psychonaut or partaker of the hallucinogenics, so it is scarier to me to kind of imagine that sort of stuff than eat
Yeah.
crabs. I eat crabs on the damn time, so I'm just like, yep, that's Thursday.
Yeah. I think I would agree. I would imagine the loss of control because you're ingesting something would be terrifying, whereas if a crab person walks up to you, you still have bodily autonomy to, like, figure out how to deal with it.
Yeah, yeah. It's when the mushrooms are inside you that it's like, what do I do? What do I do? What's real?
Oh my god. I have to say, after Ghost Eaters, I mean, so it's I mean, there's mushrooms all throughout the book, and, I felt like I needed a shower afterwards because of,
Hmm.
like, I felt so like there were mushrooms all around and the dust and everything. Like, it was so effective. I just need you to understand. It was so good. And it creeped
Amazing.
me out so much,
I love it.
but it was
Love it,
fantastic.
love it, love it.
So what are some things that you maybe are reading now or have read recently that you're excited about? Some book
Ooh.
recs for us?
Well, I already mentioned This Thing Between Us by Gus
Mhm.
Moreno, and Come With Me by um, Ronald Malfi. I
Mhm.
just recently finished Sarah Langen's new novel, A Better World,
Mhm.
which is
Yeah.
wild. She goes to some intense places, which I love, love, love. I'm reading a used book right now called Choice Cuts, which is another kind of out of print thing, a French novel. Um, I There's this one novel that's kind of a thriller. I wanna name drop this book called Here in the Dark by
Okay.
Alexis Solowski. It's more thriller than horror, but it's all about a theater critic who is suddenly kind of wrapped up in a missing persons case.
Hmm.
I had a really fun time with that one. Um, I recently discovered this author, Matthew Lyons, who's great. He has a new book coming out this summer from Tor Nightfire called A Mask of Flies,
Ooh.
which is awesome. But man, he has this book out called A Black and Endless Sky, and it
Hmm.
is brutal in all of the best ways. I love it,
Okay.
love it, love it. Um,
Yeah. I have to check those out.
yeah. Oh, there's too many. There's Lone Women by Victor Laval.
Mhm.
There's this book coming out with Quirk called The Unmothers by Leslie
Ooh.
Anderson. I don't know the release date of that. I think it's August, maybe.
We can find out.
Yeah, that's totally worth it. That's gonna be such a
Yeah.
good one.
Okay.
Um, yeah, there's so many. There's this in like indie press called Tenebris Press, and they have a novel that's coming out called From the Belly
Ooh.
by Emmett Nihil. Oh my God, I'm mispronouncing it probably, but that's a beautiful one. It's kind of like a cosmic Moby Dick book that
Ooh.
I would wholeheartedly recommend. There's too many, too many.
I will say that one, comparing it to Moby Dick's, I read Whale Fall by
Oh
Daniel
yeah.
Kraus last year. And so any weird stuff to do with whales and marine life, I'm like, I need more.
You should
So,
definitely check out From the Belly.
okay.
Whalefall, my God, what an amazing book that
Right?
was, right?
Oh
That,
my God.
yeah, lordy, lordy. Um, that's a keeper.
Yeah. I recommend that one to anybody I can who walks in the store. And ghost eaters. Um, well, thank you so much for talking with us. This was so
Hey,
fun.
thanks for having me. This is
Yeah.
amazing. I hope one day I get to come to Friendly City Books because
Yeah.
I feel like you know, the road is kind of you're out there and you just want to like find really cool bookstores. So one
Yeah.
day, fingers crossed.
One day we'll do it up. We'll have a great time.
Yay.
So for everybody listening and or watching, don't forget that What Kind of Mother, the paperback, comes out June 4th, and we will have copies at Friendly City Books. I will be talking about it. Come talk to me about it. All right. Well, thank you so much, Clay.
Thanks for
This was
having me.
wonderful. Happy
Bye.
reading, y'all.